Hello everyone. The purpose of this presentation is to just talk about our writing, and so far those are our two papers. You guys have submitted a poetry analysis paper, and you guys have submitted the outline for the character analysis paper. So we're almost midway, because after these two papers there is only one more paper requirement. So while we're in the middle and we're going back and trying to fix up the first two papers, and in preparation for our last paper, I did want to talk to you about the kinds of things that I'm finding in order to give you guidance for these two papers and for our last paper. So what kinds of things have I found in your papers? The first thing is, okay, I know for your poem analysis paper, the very first paragraph was to give a little bit of background on our author. Okay, and so you guys, most of you have some biography on the author, and all that biographical information you got from our textbook, right? So you got that from here. So that biographical information, you still have to cite. Anything you got from Yeats' biography, you have to cite in addition to his poem, okay? Next, you want to make sure to use MLA in-text citation for any other online sources. So anything else, if you got information about hope is a thing with feathers outside of our textbooks, you need to cite it. The works cited page, surprisingly, the works cited page has been, for the most of us, not done correctly. Let's see. The other thing is when you are citing lines of poetry, for example, from Cloths of Heaven or from Dickinson, whenever you are pulling the line, in addition to the parentheses that surround the line number, you also have to put quotation marks around that line of poetry, okay? Next, some students have only presented all their points about the poem and have forgotten to write in the actual lines for the poem, okay? So some people, in addition to not putting quotation marks, they don't even put the lines at all. So that's another thing. Whenever you're analyzing a line of poetry, you have to write that line of poetry, and it has to be contained within quotation marks. And then lastly is the plagiarism practice. So all of you are now going to be required from here on out. There is going to be a really tough grading as far as plagiarism, and you guys should have already watched the plagiarism video and know what that is all about, okay? Let's see, next. So this slide is just a reminder about the MLA formatting overall that has to be followed, okay? Just a reminder. And all of this information is in all of the paper assignment worksheets, okay? 1, the font, of course, is Times New Roman, size 12. Everything has to be double spaced. The heading, as far as the title is concerned, there's a very specific format. You guys will be looking at the sample as well. Page numbers. Number each page in the upper right-hand corner. Also include your last name with the page number. And there's an example. Mahuka 1. Now remember, pagination for every single page. Last name, page number, starting with the first page. Okay, I think that's pretty much it. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, remember that for these papers, the way you write your title is pretty basic, but it's very exact. So for each paper, you are going to say literary analysis, capital L, capital A, of, open quotation marks, and in the quotation marks, of course, you put the title of your poem, of your play, of your short story, close quotation. And then afterwards, you say by, and then insert the name of the author. So I pretty much spell it out for you. So we should not be getting the titles wrong. Okay? Okay, I want you to take a close look right here, because this actually gives you an idea of how that first page needs to look. You see the pagination, top right-hand corner, last name and page number, and then you see the headings, the very important headings that are flushed to the left. One is your name, professor's name, the name of the course, and then the date. Now don't forget, the date has to be the day first, then the month, then the year. and then you space, and then the full title based on the previous slide goes next. Okay, you notice this title is not italicized, it's not underlined, it's not all caps, it's just a regular title right there at the top, centered and all in title case. Okay. The last page of your paper, of course, is your works cited, and that gives you an idea about how that might look. Again, paginations at the top, last name, page number. The title is works cited, and that is just a capital W, capital C, 2 words, not bolded, centered, title case at the top. And then all of your sources go below that, okay? So that's exactly how your works cited page needs to look. The things that we will be looking at specifically is one, in-text citation, and secondly, what the works cited page needs to look like. Okay? So in-text or parenthetical citation, this is when in the MLA style, it refers to the works of others in your text. And what you have to do is something called parenthetical citation. And what that actually means is your citation is in parentheses. That's why it's called parenthetical. This method involves providing relevant source information in parentheses whenever a sentence uses a quotation or a paraphrase. Examples for direct quotes will be lines from a poem or lines from a play. Examples of paraphrase are when you summarize or paraphrase anything from a textbook or another source. So in this slide, we're going to look at how do you actually cite from a poem, a play, or a short story that's from within an anthology. And that's what our textbook is called. Our textbook is called an anthology. And the reason it's an anthology is because it has several works in one book. Okay? So there's a very specific format about how you cite from this textbook. Okay, if it's a poem from our anthology, you use a direct quote or a paraphrase. You use a parenthetical citation in which you identify the actual line of poetry. So, for example, if you're quoting line 1 of Dickinson's "Hope is a Thing with Feathers," following that quote, line 1 in quotation marks, you will have a parenthetical. And the parenthetical will be open parentheses and then the word line, and then 1, and then close parentheses, and then period, especially if it's the first line. So it really depends on what line you're using, but that's how you do parenthetical from a poem. Now, how do you do parenthetical from a play? And remember, our only play right now is Julius Caesar. So how do you do a parenthetical from a play? You will use a line from the play, and then there are 2 methods. I don't know if you can see it there. Parenthetical 1 is you put open parentheses, you put number 1, for example, if it's act 1, and then period, and then, for example, if it's the second scene that you are quoting from or that you're analyzing, you would put number 2, period, close parentheses. That's method number 1. Now, then you can also use Roman numerals. So if I were to do the same thing but use the Roman numerals method, I would do open parentheses and I would be Roman numeral 1, again, identifying that it's the first act that I am analyzing, and then I would put Roman numeral 2, lowercase, and then period, and then close quotations. Okay, so that gives you an idea about how you're going to quote from a play as you do your play analysis paper. Okay, right there, if you see that box at the bottom, how to quote from anthology from any other work. So remember, in addition to the poems that we are getting from our anthology, we're also reading biographies. Now, if I'm quoting from a biography, how do I do that? So the parenthetical citation is you identify for biographies the author, or in our case, because it's an anthology, you're going to identify the editor and the page number. Okay, and we all know that the editor of our book is Miss Kelly Mays. So it would be open parentheses, Mays, comma, and then page number 1034, close parentheses. And this could be an example if I'm citing from Shakespeare's biography, okay, in order to give biographical information on Shakespeare. That's how I do the in-text for biographical information. Okay. In this slide, I wanted to draw your attention to the actual example of how you might do in-text parenthetical citation when you are writing your play analysis paper or your character analysis paper. Look there at the example. It says, when Caesar sees Brutus among the assassins, he resigns himself to his fate. He cries, et tu, Brutus. Okay, now right after that, because I'm putting quotations and I'm citing a line from Act 3, you see how it's open parentheses, number 3, period, and it's in scene 1, so I put number 1, period, close quotation marks. So that's an example about how you would do citation from a play. And then in the box at the bottom, it's the same thing, but it's just showing how you would do the same thing using Roman numerals. Okay, so I hope that helps you understand how to do the in-text citation for the play. I wanted to show you this slide because it should give you a little bit more of an explanation about how to do in-text citation when you're doing biography information. So you notice in the first column, what I have is the editor. So open parentheses, Mays, comma, and then a page number. Now all of these are, for example, if I am citing in that first row from Emily Dickinson's biography, I might do something like that. Open parentheses, Mays, comma, and then the page number from Dickinson's biography. And then the subsequent rows, it's the same thing for if I was doing from Yeats or Shakespeare. So just come back to this slide, and that kind of gives you an idea about how to do in-text citation for the biography information. So finally, we come to the last page in your paper, which is the works cited page. So I'm going to very clearly try to do a detailed explanation of this particular page, okay? Works cited, this will be on a separate page at the end of your paper. The heading is actually works cited. Capital W, capital C, center, title, case. Should be centered at the top of the page. Do not use quotation marks, italics, or bold type for this heading. That's all that should go for this heading. And again, we are citing from our anthology right here. Okay, so there's a very specific format, and if you look at that slide, its very first thing is the last name of the author, comma, first name, period, and then you put the title of the essay, the poem, or whatever in quotation marks, and the period for that title has to be enclosed or within the last quotation mark, and then title of collection, and of course the collection is the Norton Introduction to Literature, comma, edited by Kelly Mays, comma, publisher, year, and the page range of entry. Okay? Now what I want you to do is I want you to try your best to practice. We're going to practice how you would put down particular works from our anthology on the works cited page. Okay? So you're going to practice 3. How would you write The Lake of Innisfree by Yeats? Okay? And this is on page 1033. How would you write Hope is a Thing with Feathers by Emily Dickinson, page 1023? How would you write A Pair of Tickets by Amy Tan? Okay, so I want you to take some time, pause the video right here, take some time and write that down, and then we're going to look at the subsequent slides and see if you did it correctly. I hope you took time to practice, but here we are with the first one, The Lake of Innisfree. So how would that appear on your works cited page? Okay, Yeats, comma, William Butler, period. Open quotation marks, and here you would insert the actual title of the poem, The Lake of Innisfree, period, close quotations, and that will be followed by the title of the collection, which we know is the Norton Introduction to Literature, in italics with a comma, edited by Kelly J. Mays, comma, and then we have the name of the publisher, W. Norton and Company, comma, 2019 year of publication, comma, and then the page number. Very good. For Hope is a Thing with Feathers, same thing, Dickinson, which is the last name of the author, comma, and then Emily, period. And then we insert the name of the actual poem in quotation marks, which is Hope is a Thing with Feathers, and then period, close quotation marks. Then we have the Norton and Introduction to Literature in italics because that's the name of the collection. Then we have our editor, Kelly J. Mays, comma, W.W. Norton and Company, comma, 2019 year of publication, comma, and then the page number. Okay. So now we come to the very end of this slideshow on MLA and how to use the proper formatting for our papers. This is rather a long presentation, but I hope that you can pause whenever there are things that you don't understand and really look at the slide as I explain. But here, with our last slide is actually Amy Tan and how you might cite or put a pair of tickets on the Works Cited page. So if there are any questions, make sure you go through all of this and email me on Moodle. Thank you.